All right, so we've had very different reactions to that incident. We're joined tonight by Community Safety Analyst Lorenzo Davids. Lorenzo, good evening to you. Thanks for your time. I wonder, what struck you as you watched the exchange, both of what Ian Cameron had to say and the subsequent response by the Minister?
Kathy, good evening to you and your viewers. Quite a bizarre engagement. Quite frankly, I think the Minister is wrong in this particular instance. A member of the public, Mr. Ian Cameron, asked a question and engaged the Minister. Kathy, we're moving into a very, very dangerous space in our democracy, seeing what we are seeing in that particular exchange. We're seeing the barriers of unaccountability being raised higher and higher within our political dispensation. And that's a dangerous position for us to move into. We are seeing the lack of media engagement from ministerial staff and from ministers themselves. We don't see press conferences anymore. We don't see the ability to question and engage political office bearers anymore. So this Donald Trump school of politics is rife within our democracy at the moment, where members of our ministerial teams are basically unaccountable, both to us and to the general public, where they do not deem it appropriate to answer questions when they are being asked by the public. And that's a very, very dangerous space for our democracy.
One of the things that the Minister seemed to be pointing to is the fact that he felt disrespected by the way that Cameron had addressed him, that there was a level of tone that he, as a public official, at the very least should be entitled to.
I think, yeah, again, that falls on the ear of the ear. If the Minister was offended by that, then he should say, listen, I'm offended by your tone, but let me engage you and quickly deal with the issue, not make that issue the gist of the gist of the discussion. I think that Mr. Cameron could have placed his question better or could have shown some decorum. But that's not the issue here. The issue here is that the Minister lost it. The Minister should have addressed Mr. Cameron courteously and said, listen, sir, I don't like the tone, but let me answer your question nonetheless. And then could have moderated that particular discussion in a way that the Minister felt safe in the engagement. But we are now in the space where ministers do not want to be challenged, questioned, and engaged. It comes down to that. So the issue of decorum is now more of a smokescreen. And the issue of I'm not going to answer questions publicly is actually the issue which is before us.
The reality is that members of the community are also facing their own frustrations, and I think all of that also ultimately contributes to how people end up choosing to engage on these issues. And part of the reason there was this meeting in the first place was as a result of cries from the community of Gugulethu that have been saying, their security concerns are being neglected.
Yeah, and we hear that message every single day in this country. The media reports on it every single day. You can go from north to south and east to west across the length and breadth of this country. There are people who are crying out for an engagement. And that engagement is going to be tough in the beginning because it's been so absent. Ministers have been absent. They don't engage. They pitch up with their crews. They make a speech. They leave. They do not want to engage. They speak words of sympathy when there's bereavement, and then they leave again. The public is asking for a critical engagement. The public is asking for ministers to stand there and to answer questions from the public. That particular issue is not happening. And so you're going to get frustrations. You're going to get people like the members from Langa yesterday who just feel deceived. They feel let down. They feel betrayed by this engagement, which is always about the minister and his message and not the community and their concerns.
Let's talk about the lessons that you believe can be taken out of that incident, really on both sides.
Yeah, I think the minister must come into communities. I think the main lesson there is that ministers must now accept that the communities are becoming intolerant of the I pitch up and give my message and leave behavior. That's no longer going to be acceptable. In fact, I foresee in the future, as we head up to the elections, that if that behavior continues, the ministerial staff teams are not going to be allowed into communities to come and speak because the community would want to question the ministers. That's the first thing, is you can't come and pitch up anymore and leave with your message having been delivered. Stay and engage. The second thing that I think is very important here is that the community is informed. Ministers must stop thinking that communities are ignorant of their environments. Sorry, the power just went out. The ministers must stop thinking that the community is ignorant of the environment and the messages. The communities know what they want to talk about, and the minister and his officers must bestow that respect upon the community. When the minister enters a community, he is a guest in that community. He is not the owner. He is not the main speaker. He is not the chief in that space. He is a guest at the behest of the community, and he must answer what the community wishes him to answer. And the third important thing that I think is very, very important for us to note in this particular space is that unless that dialogue takes place, we are going to see the escalation of the gap, of the barrier, of the distance between us and the state. This is a very, very dangerous place for us to be in. The state is no longer a trusted messenger within the context of leading the messages in this country. We are now skeptical of what the state tells us, and that's a very dangerous space for this government to be in.
You know, one of the things that comes to mind, Lorenzo, is a community engagement that took place. I think it must have been over the last 2 months between the provincial police officers in Gauteng and the community of Lenasia. A very honest, very robust engagement. In fact, if we were to compare the two, they're really incomparable when you hear what residents of that community had to say. And to me, it also suggests that how officials respond in moments like that perhaps is more critical than anything, because it really determines what becomes the story.
Yeah, and Kathy, I think the Lenasia story is an example. There are officials who know how to conduct public engagements. There are brilliant officials who come out and they know how to deal with communities in a way that allows the conversation to take place and not the personalities to dominate the conversation. And I think we need to have those good practitioners out there regulating those spaces so that both politicians and community can engage in such a space where respect, honesty, openness, and safety can be spoken about in a way that is progressive. It takes us forward. It doesn't break down around the conflict between two personalities, two parties, or two individuals.
All right, Community Safety Analyst Lorenzo Davids, let's leave it there for tonight.